You stand in 1953 Tehran as crowds chant against foreign oil companies. A prime minister nationalizes the industry and suddenly the streets feel ready to ignite. Was this the spark that invited foreign spies to strike? You watch Prime Minister Mossadegh address parliament, calm yet defiant, as Britain and America see their oil lifeline slipping away. The Cold War lens turns every reform into a communist threat. How far would the West go to keep control? You follow the money as Mossadegh seizes the Anglo-Iranian oil company. Britain freezes assets and plots revenge while the CIA watches from Washington. The stage is set for a joint operation no one will admit for decades. You meet Kermit Roosevelt Jr. arriving undercover in Tehran with suitcases of cash. His mission, buy newspaper editors, bribe army officers, and hire street mobs. The plan carries the code named Ajax. You hear the first paid protesters chanting for the Shah while others march for Mossadegh. The same crowds flip allegiance by afternoon. Who is really controlling the streets? You see the Shah hesitate, then flee to Italy after the first coup attempt collapses. The operation looks like a failure. Yet Roosevelt stays behind and rewrites the script overnight. You witness the second wave, tanks surround parliament, radio stations are seized, and Mossadegh is arrested in his own home. The elected leader falls in hours. The official story claims an internal power struggle. You track the 40-year silence as Washington and London deny any role. Every accusation is labeled conspiracy theory. Then the files surface. What exactly did the CIA finally admit? You read the released history, direct CIA payments, propaganda campaigns, and coordination with MI6. The mystery is no longer whether it happened. The question becomes what came next for Iran. You open the CIA's own 1950s internal history and read Kermit Roosevelt's field reports line by line. He describes paying Iranian contacts, planting newspaper stories, and staging street demonstrations. The document names every step of the plan. The agency kept these pages sealed for decades. What else did they decide the public could never see? The 2000 New York Times leak drops first. You trace how one memo escaped the vault and forced partial admissions. Full files remain classified. Then 2013 arrives and the CIA posts the complete record online without ceremony. The 40-year wall cracks open. Who inside the agency finally authorized the release? You follow the money listed in the documents. Suitcases of cash move from Washington to Tehran through cutouts and local allies. MI6 coordinates the British side from London. Every payment receives a code name and receipt. The operation ran like a business ledger. How many accountants signed off before the coup began? The files reveal the propaganda machine in detail. Radio broadcasts, fabricated editorials, and paid demonstrators all appear on the same expense sheet. You see the exact date the campaign launched. Nothing was improvised. Why did both governments maintain total denial while the operation's own writers recorded every move? You reach the section describing the Shah's hesitation. Roosevelt personally visits the palace with assurances and cash. The young monarch agrees only after the plan is already underway. The document records his reluctance in dry bureaucratic language. What would have changed if he had refused that night? Later pages show the destruction orders issued after the coup succeeded. Agents burn cables and notebooks to erase the paper trail. You read the instructions written in the same calm tone as the operational plans. The cover-up begins the moment victory is declared. How much evidence never made it into any archive? The 2013 release arrives quietly on a government website. You notice the absence of any official statement or apology. The files simply appear. Decades of denials end without explanation. The mystery of how the secret was kept now becomes the mystery of why it was finally surrendered. What forced the timing? You compare the CIA's own history with the British records released later. Both services describe the same meetings and the same decision to remove Mossadegh. The joint operation is confirmed in their own words. The question of whether the coup happened is settled. The question of what came next for Iran remains open. Reading the final pages, you see the planners already worrying about future blowback. They note the risk of Iranian resentment yet proceed anyway. The documents end without reflection on the long-term cost. The discovery ends here. The consequences for Iran begin the moment the last payment is recorded. You read the cables ordering cash drops to Tehran street gangs. The money buys crowds that shout for the Shah and smash Mossadegh posters. The documents list exact sums and the men who carried the bags. Then the ledgers stop. Who else received payment that week remains blank. You follow the next file, radio transmitters broadcasting false reports that Mossadegh has resigned. The CIA station confirms the broadcasts reached the barracks. Officers hesitate, then arrest loyal units. The plot hinges on one broadcast loop. What happens if the signal fails stays unasked in the margin. The operation log records tanks rolling toward Mossadegh's residence at dawn. Gunfire echoes for 2 hours. The Prime Minister surrenders without ordering return fire. His final telegram to the palace is filed but never answered. The silence that follows is the coup's quietest page. You turn to the Shah's return flight manifest. He lands with a CIA escort and immediately signs new oil terms. The same document notes the formation of a secret police force trained by the same officers who just changed the government. Its name appears for the first time, SAVAK. Internal memos warn that public anger may outlast the Shah. One analyst predicts a generation of resentment. The warning is initialed and filed under future contingencies. No follow-up memo exists. The file closes on that single sentence. You see the final payment recorded on August 22, 1953. The operation is declared a success. 3 days later the first SAVAK arrests begin. The files never connect these two dates. The gap between victory and repression is left for you to measure. The documents list the British share of the new oil consortium. American firms receive 40%. The split is signed before Mossadegh's trial even opens. Profit and regime change occupy the same paragraph. The arithmetic feels too clean. You reach the last declassified page. It contains a single question from a junior analyst: what happens when the Shah falls? The reply line is empty. 26 years later the files still offer no answer. The coup succeeds on paper. Iran's modern history begins the morning after the last payment. The question the planners never finished writing now hangs over every later file you open. You open the final archive box in 2013. The CIA memo admits every bribe, every forged leaflet, every paid rioter who toppled Mossadegh. The theory you were told to dismiss now carries the agency's own signature. What else did they once call fiction? Kermit Roosevelt's cables describe the exact moment the crowds turned. Paid thugs chant the Shah's name while genuine protesters swell behind them. The line between orchestration and explosion blurs on the page. Which cheers were bought and which were real? The files list the total cost, under $1 million and one broken constitution. Mossadegh walks to prison. The Shah returns to his throne. Oil flows west again. The balance sheet closes. Who still pays the interest? 25 years of official silence end here. The 1953 coup is no longer rumor. It is agency history, initialed and dated. The documents close the case on denial. What new silence begins the day after acknowledgement? SAVAK rises from the same operation. Interrogation rooms fill with names first circled in Roosevelt's notebooks. The coup's victory list becomes tomorrow's prisoner roster. The file ends. The names do not. The Shah's fall arrives in 1979 exactly as the unnamed analyst feared. The empty reply line now fills with revolution. The planners who left the question blank watch their own creation collapse on television. Did anyone update the file? You close the last folder. The paper still smells of ink and time. Every page confirms the overthrow that once lived only in whispers. The conspiracy theory walks out wearing its original classification stamp. Where does the next theory begin? The oil still moves. The sanctions still bite. The memory of that August morning lives in every later file you open. The coup succeeded on paper. Its children still write the next pages. Which chapter are you reading now? The junior analyst's question remains unanswered in the archive. What happens when the Shah falls? The files offer no reply. The revolution has already answered on the streets. The question now waits for the next declassified box.